What's up, y'all, and welcome into the Jack Vita and Stephanie Mitchell show.
Yay! Hey guys.
We are back. It's Christmas morning all over again. Deal or No Deal Island season 2, episode 1 just aired, and we're so excited because every single week, Stephanie here from season 1 of Deal or No Deal Island, America's sweetheart,
Oh,
everyone's favorite.
I wouldn't say that, Jack.
America's fan favorite, sweetheart, finished third place. Actually, the villain,
Of
but
the
I don't think she's not really a villain.
not in real life, sadly.
No. So anyway, Stephanie had a great run on season 1, and this season, every single week, she's going to join me. And we are going to recap and to discuss the episodes. We're going to talk about everything that we saw. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll bring on some guests, probably some friends from season 1 and also from some other shows.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to this. You and I get a chance to really break down each episode, and I can't wait to delve into the season with you, Jack.
A little bit about Stephanie, because obviously you guys only just saw her on TV. Stephanie is actually a total sweetheart, and I truly mean that. She's a great person, very kind, very enthusiastic, has a great passion for reality TV. And Steph, before we get into everything DONDI, I'm just curious, when did you first start watching reality TV?
Oh my, I first started watching reality TV way before it was really a genre. It was back in the MTV days of Real World. And so that was when I was first exposed to the idea of like this reality, an unscripted version of what television shows could be. I've been enthralled ever since. And one of my favorites, of course, is Big Brother. And moving on, there's a lot of great Survivor, of course. You can't be a reality fan without having experienced Survivor in any of its iterations throughout the last, what are we at, 48th season
Yeah.
coming up. So, I love the genre. It's fun, it's exciting, it's unpredictable. It leaves viewers wanting to be in there and feeling like, what would I do in this situation? It's very much like a choose your own adventure. And I love it. I love to see it.
So every single week we'll be here, we'll be breaking it down. We're going to dive right into it. Of course, last season, Brooke struck from Survivor season 11, Guatemala. She co-hosted the show with me, and Brooke really wanted to co-host it again. Unfortunately, it's just way too much going on. She's a working mother. She's an attorney. She's got 3 kids. She's driving them around. They got a million sports going on, a lot of travel. So Brooke will probably join us from time to time. I know she'll be watching Deal or No Deal Island. It's a special show that she watches with her 4th or 5th grade son. I can't remember how old Everett is now. I think he's in 5th grade. And so she'll be joining us. Brooke was not fired. Far from
No,
it. Brooke would be on
no.
here every single week if she was able to. I would love to have her. But it worked out really well because Steph is obviously very passionate about the show, but she provides a new angle and a new perspective that we didn't have last season, which is the insider, former player. It's kind of like when you watch sports and you've got the play-by-play guy and the color commentator, that's the former player. So I'm really excited about what Steph's going to bring to the table. I'm really excited to dive right into all this season. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for having me, Jack. I appreciate the space. So looking forward to it.
It's going to be a good time. So make sure you guys are all subscribed here on the Jack Vita Show. We're going to have the plan right now is every Wednesday you're going to have a recap, and every Thursday you'll have the exit interview, and they'll go straight into your whatever podcast app you're using. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, every podcast app, and then we got this YouTube channel. So hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you don't miss out on all the content. We're going to be your home for all things DONDI Season 2. Really excited about all of it. It's going to be a lot of fun. With all of that said, it's time to sink our teeth into the premiere here of Season 2. And I guess the best place to start, Steph, this is going to be a little different from how we normally do these recaps. Let's talk a little bit about this cast. We're not going to mention everybody, I imagine here, we're just going to kind of do a quick little run through of some standouts, some early impressions, first impressions. I'm going to start by saying this. This is a critique that I have of the show. And
Okay.
it's not just of this show. This is of like really modern reality TV. It's very different from the Real World or early days of Survivor, where you get the shot of like, this is what this person does in their everyday life. This is who they are. The Bachelor and Big Brother, I think, still kind of do that when they kind of introduce who's going to be on the
Yes.
show. I really, really would like it if we spent more time, especially before diving into everything on the show and having them run a challenge, is who are these people? Let's find out who these people are. They did it in reverse order. They're like, let's have a challenge, and this challenge can maybe show a little bit about their personality, which is an
Right.
interesting choice. Any thoughts first? Who do you want to discuss first from this challenge, Steph? Who jumped out at
Okay.
you?
Well, I will say first that I completely agree with you. I think character development is extremely important in getting viewers attached to their favorite protagonist. It wants us to root for them. And so I love to see it, but also there are limitations of how much you see this particular episode. They jammed so much into it. So I guess it'll remain to be seen. Right now, when they do little interviews and you have little snippets, you're getting an idea of who these people are. So to that extent, when we move into the first excursion here, you had 3 opportunities to choose an easy course, a medium course, and the more difficult one. And there are people like Storm who immediately has an idea of what he wants to do in order to kind of stay in the middle. So, and then you have other people like Luke, who immediately volunteers, like, not here to be scared, I'm not holding back. So immediately you begin to get an idea of who these people are in little snippets. Very interesting that the easiest pathway, but the longest through the jungle, consisted of so many people. And some people, like CK, would say, oh, I just landed here just for the team and did the best thing. But that major big herd in the middle, which was Dixon, Michelle, wait, who else was there? Dixon, Storm, Rock, Maria, CK, and Lachelle, all through the middle. And I'm like, I'm keeping an eye on those floating people in the middle. I'm keeping an eye on them.
So, which one would you have chosen? Which
Oh,
one of you have chosen?
the easiest one. See, I thought about it. I'm not a runner, you know. So, and I definitely don't like the idea of the zip line, and I don't like the gambling piece. But wouldn't want to jump through the rocks. I'd be running through the jungle. I'd be on that easy course. What about you, Jack?
I would have done the rocks for sure. It
Well,
looked fun to me. I was like, I would totally have done that. And I think, yeah, so I would have done that. Although the thing that was interesting is you mentioned the easy people got through it the fastest. I was kind of wondering if it kind of looked like they all had to do that rock thing together. So that, there were probably a couple of people that weren't very fast with that because they didn't move through it as quickly as, I don't know. I think I would have gone through that relatively quickly, but
yeah.
you have to wait for your team. So I would have chosen that one if I was going into it blind. Definitely would not have chosen the steal. I think the steal is,
Oh my word.
we've seen different iterations of this on reality TV, but also on season 1. You don't want to be a person who's ruffling feathers early on. I think you just want to, as you're kind of talking about, you want to be in the middle. You don't want to create waves. And I don't know. I think it's going to be really interesting to talk about this David fellow because the guy is really talking a big game, but I was not impressed with his gameplay in this first episode.
Oh, really? Okay. What is your critique of David's gameplay that really lent you some pause?
All right. Well, there are a few things really. So first of all, he definitely was a little like it felt like there was a little bit of showman aspect to this, where it's like not only does he single himself out as someone who's going to steal, which creates a target in the first place, and then they ended up being the losing team, but he really was. It wasn't like he was subtle about the fact of like, oh, I'm keeping watch to see who these people are, who took it,
Correct.
whatever. He really, it felt like he wanted the moment of like, look how smart I am, look how great I am on this thing. And then it blew up in his face because he underestimated the smarts of the other people. He seemed like, oh, these dum-dums are never going to flip the case or change
Yeah.
anything.
So obvious. I really thought that, number one, I recognize what you did also. When I saw David up there on the zip line, I'm like, he's not even hiding the fact that he's waiting. He could have hid, he could have been low
Yeah.
key. Like, and also, David, do you literally not think that as they see you waiting to see which case they're going to grab, do you not think they're going to switch it? That's literally elementary. That is why when Parvati later on gets really excited, she's like, I can't wait to play him. This is so exciting. Game on, I believe is what she says. And I'm like, I guess she recognizes it for what it is, but I agree. That was not a great move.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I don't know, it sort of felt like a look how smart I am. I'm keeping watch. I've got these people, this whole thing, this code cracked. And then he ended up being wrong. And he made like a big kind of showing of how strategic and how much of a thinker he is. And then he gets offered a deal, which was a pretty good deal. Like
Oh,
you don't
man.
you
Yeah,
don't need the highest value case. You just need to stay out of the bottom. So if they get that case, they're out of the bottom, right? He's safe. They're all safe.
I agree. I agree. Isn't that where Seychelle, isn't that where she said mad dumb?
Yeah.
Was that
Yeah.
not taking that case? I thought that was funny. Not
Yeah.
taking that deal.
So he got offered a good deal. And then I mean I think we'll probably talk a little we'll come back to him a little bit later, but um I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who this guy is. I have not seen Australian Survivor. He
Mhm.
says that he is the GOAT and that he's, the greatest, and I wasn't that impressed with what I saw in the first episode.
Yes, my notes on David is that he says midwife lore, internet lore. Internet lore calls him the greatest of all time. And so I went ahead and do my own deep dive. And I said, you see? And so we'll have to continue to see if that carries over into this season. But so far, I am lacking that impression that I thought I would see. But who knows?
You don't want to be, first of all, you don't want to be the person that's stealing this early on. They ended up losing the challenge because of poor execution, and it wasn't just him. We'll talk about some of the other factors of that. But he lost the challenge. He got offered an opportunity to stay kind of out of the bottom. He didn't take it. And yeah, I just thought he was really off with a lot of this. Now, you asked me a question. You texted me when we were first watching this episode.
Mm-hmm.
You said, I want a male standout and a female standout. And I interpreted this as like, who jumps out to you in any way. Maybe it's just as a character, maybe it's as a gamer. I'm going to flip that around, and I want your two, and then I'll give my two.
Oh, great. Okay, so the standout character for me is Sydnee. Sydnee, we heard a lot from. She was the person who was safe. She didn't do a good job in that role of playing safe. I'm watching Sydnee because I believe that she's ruffling a lot of feathers. And we saw throughout the rest of this episode, she inadvertently, whether it was by her behavior, conversation, or otherwise, has sort of created a lot of animosity between her island mates there. And so I'm watching Sydnee because I believe her behaviors are going to implode. And then in terms of the male character, which I'm watching closely, is Dixon, because Dixon has found himself in a position of being in the center of two really big beings of Parvati and David. And he's kind of nestled right in there. He's very unsuspecting. He isn't necessarily one of the more physically, physique type of males there on that island. I mean, I guess I can say that because he himself offered up his body as a weight for those who are working out. So I can't wait to see how Dixon's character emerges, and these rankings may change, but that's my initial impressions of those who I want to keep an eye on.
So Sydnee, we'll touch on her. She really, she's kind of all over the place. It seemed like they really made it look like she was kind of people are like, ooh, she's interesting. She's a character. So definitely intrigued to watch her play. She had a lot of thoughts during the game of Deal or No Deal Island
Yeah, totally.
that Luke was playing, and it was hilarious because then when other people tried to weigh in, she's like, "Don't talk, guys. Just let him play." Like, what?
I thought that was so funny. Joe is engaging people in the conversation. Like, what do you guys think? And she's like, no opinions. Like, Sydnee, girl, that's the name of the game, honey. Like, you can't listen to Joe. I'm sure he's got it covered. So everyone kind of gave her a side eye on that, and as did I.
Yeah, they also established that she has some kind of interest or fandom in David. She likes him a lot. She wanted to keep him safe, which I don't. It's funny because I thought that there really wasn't much of a reason to try to keep this guy safe. I didn't think that was a really great offer to give that deal because it's like I don't know if I would have played it differently. I should say maybe it's smart, maybe it's not smart, but the way I would have looked at it is like I thought that David made himself a target, and I'm like, this is an easy first person to try to get out.
Agree.
That's how I would have tried to shift that. So I wouldn't have offered a line of help to him. I want someone out who's going for the steal. Why would I try to keep the people who went for the steal in the game? Because it's a first impression. This is all you're going off of, and it tells you what kind of player they're going to be.
Right.
So I didn't think it was great to offer him a deal, and then he messed it up by not taking the deal. It was just like...
And I actually thought about that moment of, I love in shows like this where it's not in the rules specifically, so people just kind of like do their own thing. And so this side deal, I thought it was very interesting. And Sydnee was the curator, or was it Letty who was the curator of this new deal to David? Who was that?
It looked like Sydnee was the person who was kind of all about it. We didn't really get a whole lot of, was this kind of a group decision, or they did show him talking about it.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was really great gameplay. Anyway, I love that. To be creative about strategy and not just do exactly what's laid out for you, but for people who are, trying to figure side deals. But it can make you a target. And I think that didn't help the cause. People are now looking at those folks who are involved in creating this side deal as like, oh, we are not playing with basic people here. So it's very risky at this point in the game.
Well, I just don't think they really would have gained much from it. Like, I mean, yes, it's the idea is that you don't lose the $1 million case, but he clearly is going for the wrong case. So what? Just let him take the wrong case. Like, She just likes David.
I think Sydnee seems very bent on creating some sort of romantic connection. So we'll see how that plays out.
Now, you mentioned Dixon. Clearly a Parvati fan. This is a good point to discuss Parvati. So I will say this. I was a little surprised at Parvati's inclusion in Deal or No Deal Island. Because I think you see it a little bit in terms of she's kind of talking about like, oh, these people don't seem to know who I am. And I think Dixon's like, they don't know who Parvati is. But like, Parvati is not the same kind of famous as Boston Rob is. Boston Rob was on Survivor back when the show really, really mattered and was like at the center of pop culture in America. It was he was on the All-Star season. He, before that, was on the 4th season. There were like 30 million people watching it every single week. They had commercials centered around Boston Rob. Boston Rob is mainstream to people who don't watch Survivor. If you talk to people like, oh yeah, you ever watch Survivor? Or I mentioned I cover some of these shows. They're like, I watch Survivor. Yeah, I like Boston Rob. Boston Rob is like a huge, huge draw. And we saw it with season 1. Parvati, I think, is a little more niche. Like, if you watch Survivor between 2006 and 2010, and maybe you came back or you binged those seasons later, then yeah, you know who Parvati is. But I just don't think that Parvati is the same kind of draw as Rob is. And I mean that in the best way possible. It's not a dig at Parvati. She was just on the show at a time when the show's viewership, it didn't have the same kind of cultural importance in America.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think Rob is the type of person you put him on TV. There'll be people who haven't watched Survivor in 10 years who are going to be like, oh, Boston Rob, cool. I want to watch that show.
Mm-hmm. Well, I might tend to disagree just a little bit. I believe Parvati is an icon as well in the Survivor world, but now dually, because she did cross over into Traders, which is an entirely different set of people, some of whom I'm assuming went back and had to really analyze, who is this Parvati person? But I remember Parvati, actually, I first was introduced to Parvati was when I was not really, when she was on Survivor, and it was one of my daughter's favorite. And she was like, Parvati, Parvati. I was like, what are you talking about? Who is this person? And she gravitated towards her, and she was super young at the time. So I think Parvati people are not sick of seeing Parvati, and she does hold major weight. She's played a lot of times. I think it is one of those names, like also like Sandra, like Sari, like Hatch. Like I feel like there's some people, if you just mention their name, I think they hold that weight. And I think Parvati does hold that weight though. I agree. Maybe it's not to the same level of as Rob, but like she's right there. She is Survivor.
I think that the people that are like the really like big draws, because I'm talking about like, we're not talking about who the Survivor fans today think are the big names. We're talking about people who don't watch Survivor anymore. And because that's the most of the country. That's the people that you're trying to get. Like, obviously you want to pull over some Survivor fans, but like you want someone who's got a very broad mainstream appeal. Hatch is somebody, Tina Wesson, Colby Donaldson.
Yes.
Stephanie LaGrossa would be in that mix. Sandra and Sari for sure, even though Sari played a little later. Sari's now played like, I don't know, like 10 times, and she's been on Big Brother and Traders. She's in all these different worlds. One Traders. Yeah. And so I don't know. I just don't think that, I mean, when people are talking about, oh, we don't really recognize Parvati, like, I can kind of understand it, because if these people aren't huge reality TV fans, like if they are reality TV fans, then of course they're going to know who Parvati was. She won, she's played Survivor a bunch, but she came at a different time in the show's history where it really wasn't as much of a mainstream show as was earlier.
Right. That makes sense. She's definitely has that longevity though. There's not a lot of folks who've been in this genre where we can predictably count on seeing them with some sort of regularity. That's usually, it's like a one and done type of situation. And she fortunately is a name that just kind of stays up there. And Parvati
She looks great, by the way. She looks great. She's in her 40s. She looks amazing. She looks and she looks like, not only does she look beautiful, but she looks like she's really fit. She's in good shape. I don't think she's going to have difficulty with the challenges. I think she'll do pretty well on that.
I think she'll do well on that as well. One of the things that stuck out to me that Parvati said is that the Parvati who played and won Survivor is not the same Parvati of her being a mother. It's not the same. It's not the same Parvati. It's not the same person. So, and I think maybe I saw a little piece of that in this past episode. So I'm looking forward to seeing a little bit, maybe some more of that softness.
We'll see. I don't know. I didn't think Parvati had a real great episode either. I think she did well in the challenge, obviously. But one trend that I've noticed with Parvati playing these shows over the years is, and I heard about this on Traders, I heard about this from people who were on the show last season, is that she really alienated herself from a lot of people. She just kind of like found a couple of people that she hung out with, and she didn't really make a great effort to like make a lot of friends. You saw it with Phaedra saying, nobody likes you, Parvati.
She's icy.
So...
Yes.
So I think that's a common mistake that she has made, like on Winners at War, they had a pretty good alliance early on, the old schoolers in that season, and she decided to turn on Danny, and that really was the end of the old school alliance to put them in the minority alliance. On that season, it was basically her, Ethan, and Rob hanging out all the time, and not really, she wasn't really getting to know a lot of people. On Heroes versus Villains, it was a similar case. It somehow worked out because of a hidden immunity idol play, but like she was in that minority alliance with Russell and Danielle DiLorenzo, and they had kind of alienated the rest of the tribe. So that's a common theme I've noticed with Parvati, and we saw a little bit of it in this episode where in the coming attraction, it's like, okay, Dixon, David, Parvati, we have got to get them out. So that's, I think, where Parvati could, I think in order for her to kind of be a different player, you've got to be a social player that's building bonds with everybody.
I can see exactly what you mean, especially having watched her play before. I thought it was very nice of Parvati to scooch over on that bench next to David and invite Dixon in. We saw glimpses of Parvati on this Who Knows Parvati game, which was also being played along the Who Knows David game. So the Who Knows Parvati game, we saw Philip confronting her. So Philip knows. We saw her, Maria Grace, at the sinks when they were brushing their teeth. So Maria knows, Dixon for sure knows, and David for sure knows. That's on one side. And Parvati's had conversations with each of these people, kind of like, hey, we're friends, you know my secret. So I feel like she's trying to dig her way into some people and start to form friendships because she needs to, because people are aware. I mean, that's almost the majority of folks who are aware of her as a player, as opposed to the Who Knows David piece. Who knows David? It looks like Parvati is the only one that knows David so far anyway. And we hear David even say that he's fangirling Parvati. Parvati's fangirling David. So, you know, there's definitely a dynamic, but in terms of the way Parvati's playing, I feel like she's doing a fairly okay job. Just kind of, you see her having these little brief conversations. They were all self-serving. Okay, so we could be clear about that. They were self-serving to protect her and kind of insulate her, but she did. At least she's talking to people.
Well, I'm just saying, let's keep an eye on that. Let's see how that goes moving forward, because
So
you know we
true.
got a little bit of that at the end of the episode where Dixon's calling him mom and dad, and like people just kind of seem to be picking up on it. So we will see how that goes. Now, you mentioned the David and Parvati dynamic. At one point, they kind of come up and they're kind of like, I know who you are, and I want to play a game with you. Parvati is going to be on the next season of Australian Survivor.
Right.
So there's obviously that connection there. She knew who David was, and David obviously knew who she was. Again, it's going to be really interesting to see how this all plays out, how that connection goes, and if they're able to build a coalition that extends just past the three of them. The two that I will bring up, my two standouts. So just early impressions, who did I enjoy? Who was I most interested in? Number one was my man Luke, who lost. And this is, keep in mind, this is me making a pick on character, not gameplay. This is me. Who am I interested in? So I was really bummed to see him lose.
Totally.
A little bit about Luke. Personal chef from Eagle River, Wisconsin. Eagle River, that area, my family vacations up to. I'm from Chicago. My whole life, every single summer, we go up to the Northwoods of Wisconsin, and we're in Eagle River. So it's, you know, it's possible that I've probably run into this guy before at a supermarket or something, and you know, it's a small area. Eagle River, by the way, it kind of feels like when you go up there, it sort of feels like you time traveled like 20 years ago, and it's like 2002, and there isn't a whole lot of cell reception. There's a lot of places that don't have Wi-Fi. It just feels like a slower pace. It's very relaxing. You know, he talked a little bit about fishing walleye and trout. There are lakes everywhere, woods. It's beautiful. I love it up there. So immediately I've got a connection to him. He's got that, you know, Wisconsin, like a real rich Wisconsin accent.
Yes. Shout out,
he just seemed very like pure-hearted too. So I really liked him.
I did too. I could see that. He's very much an American guy's guy. And so I could see you being like, yes, that's the one that that you find the close
He
proximity
was
of to kind of like how you are. So I feel like that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to talking with him in our exit interview. That'll drop tomorrow. It's going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, not the funnest for him that he lost, but
Sure.
you mentioned the connection. He was talking a lot about college football and NFL. Like you could definitely see why we would
Yes.
get along.
Yeah, totally. What did you think of seeing that he went out and we only had this brief like time period with him? What did you think of his overall gameplay and the choices and decisions that he made?
He made some poor decisions. I don't want to. There's a part of me that doesn't want to pile onto him too much. I will point out the flaws and the things. And by the
Sure.
way, all of the commentary that we provide is not piling on. We're just talking
Yeah.
about what we're seeing, and of course, keep in mind what we see is just such a small edited part of the show. So there's a lot more going on. Conversations could be very different from how they're shown to us. But with Luke, let's start with again, he was on the wrong side of the steal thing.
Okay.
That's just not, I just don't think that that's where you want to be early in the show, is making that decision to be someone who steals. What first impression does that send? It sends
Hmm.
that you're a wild card, you're a sneaky, selfish kind of player. Whether you are or not, that's how it's perceived. Perception becomes reality. Then he makes the wrong decision on which case to steal. He doesn't even take the case with the highest value. So
Can, can we talk about that for a second?
yes, we
I
can.
just have to say that with him having $1 in his case, I just want to point out that had he taken any deal, he would have been fine. Any deal at all. But okay. Yeah. So that's a bummer.
Well, yeah, okay, that's a different thing. It was the Deal or No Deal Island game. I'm talking about the steal earlier in the
Oh, yes, of
challenge.
course. Of course. Of
Then
course.
when he plays that game, one that unfortunately the peanut gallery also kind of messed it up for him, but you should still be able to have the wherewithal to figure out, all right, I've got a 2 in 3 chance of staying alive here if I take this deal.
Mhm.
Um, Instead, they're telling him he's got a 1 in 3 chance. Someone tries to correct Sydnee, and then she's like, "Don't talk. Let him figure this out on his own."
Oh my word. Yeah, that was funny. I mean, for CK, who wants to stay under the radar, she sure goes into depth about her calculations post temple. I'm like, CK, I thought you weren't talking about your mathematician, poker skills. So it's interesting to watch people run the numbers. I have dyscalculia. I'm absolutely certain of it. So I would be in a similar sort of situation with information overload and maybe not being
Yeah,
able to make a decision. That's a tough position to be in, I'll say. High pressure, high pressure.
this is somebody here who did beat the banker,
Yeah,
so
speaking of. It's a high pressure situation, and I think, Luke might beat himself up over this down the line, but it's a game, and these are the chances, and he exited very gracefully, and that was really nice. He's a class act for sure.
the thing is, he had like the perfect case. You want the $1 in your case. This is the funny thing about the way that this is formatted is you have to accept a deal that's better than what is in your case. Or if you
Right.
take what's in your case, it has to be better than whatever offer you or whatever the last other case is. So that means there's 2 cases. It's always going to be at least a 50-50 shot. The way that it actually works, though, is because of this. When you're playing, you actually want to knock out the cases on the right column. Ideally, if you could get one case on the right column and then have all the cases on the left column, you're going to
Hmm.
have the highest probability of staying, because then you end up having like a pretty much like a 1 in 6 or a 1 in 7 chance of losing, because the lowest on the left side is 500. So as long as it's higher than 500, and if you've got like $1 million case, then it's always going to be more than 500.
Right.
That's the situation that you want. And did people realize that when you played season 1?
No, see, you brought this up last season also, Jack, because when you see people cheering for the smaller numbers and such, it's kind of like, yeah, kind of, but you really, it depends on how it all plays out. But I see what you're saying, and I don't think we played it that way. If you look at season 1, like statistically, I don't think it played out like that all the time. I don't think people realized. So, all you have to do is make a good deal. That's it. That's what's to keep in mind. And I don't think people calculate it all the way sometimes.
Yeah, because I think it'd be interesting if at some point they ended up switching this when we get to like season 5, Lord willing. If it becomes like, if people start to get onto this thing of like, oh yeah, like $1,000, I'll take that offer because it's higher probability. If it switched to like, okay, you need to accept an offer or make at least $200,000. It needs to be over that threshold or have some kind of threshold, because the way it's incentivized. Now, granted, it's a selfish way to play, but you got to be selfish. That's exactly how I wouldn't care if I got $10 and I survived. Who cares?
Yeah,
it's
right.
about my survival, not this theoretical final pot that I might not even be there for. Right. So, yeah.
We got to get you up there. We got to get you on the island, Jack.
I tried. I applied for season 2.
Oh my goodness.
Crickets. Got ghosted.
Okay.
Didn't hear anything.
We got to work on it. That would be great.
I'm down. Season 3, hit me up. Let's go.
Yes. Jack was your male to kind of watch.
Luke.
Okay.
Luke.
Oh no, sorry. Yeah, Luke was
my favorite male character that I was introduced to in like the first 5 minutes, and he ended up being my favorite male character through the first episode. Now, granted, there's another factor here, is we're talking about the fact that we really did not get a whole lot of who all these people are, and they're going to develop these characters over time. So I'm certain there are going to be some awesome characters and personalities that we're going to grow to love and love to hate, as we love to hate. America loved to hate you, Steph.
I'm so sad.
But yeah, so not a great showing for him, but I enjoyed him, and he dug his own grave. He didn't play it well. One thing that I will say, Seychelle.
Yes.
Easy with the go back to Wisconsin stuff. Come on.
I will say that this show has folks from all across the United States. Seychelle did a wonderful Wisconsin accent, but at the same time, CK did a wonderful New York accent and intimate. What is the word that I'm looking for? Like an impression of Seychelle, and I busted down laughing. It was so funny. So, I mean, with regional accents can be funny if they're done in a classy way. Hers was in a side interview, not to his face. It probably wasn't too classy, but I think she's giving it and she's getting it also.
So, I mean, I just felt a little triggered here with Seychelle, and this is good because you want people who are going to elicit some kind of response in the audience. But by the second or third time she said go back to Wisconsin or whatever, I'm just kind of like, okay, this is so classic, and this is great because you're here. This sounds to me like the classic East Coast person of like, oh, your little town in the Midwest, and I'm like, hey, easy on Wisconsin. Wisconsin, an amazing state.
Easy on Wisconsin. I think it was so funny because easy on the Wisconsin. Some of the best people I've ever met have been from the middle area of the country. I love a good Wisconsian. Is that what we call them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the best people I've ever met. Dawson, season 1, Deal or No Deal.
Yeah. Island. Love Dawson, by the way. Dawson's a great guy.
Yes. So, anything else about Seychelle that kind of stuck out to you, or was that kind of like?
It's funny. I'm kind of making a joke about this a little bit. I do like how, I mean, this is a character here who's got a strong personality. It's exactly what they're going for. This is kind of like the New Yorker who's, sort of blunt and is going to say whatever. And I think she's just kind of owning that role, and I think she's going to be a lot of fun. I'm in on her.
I am
She
too.
triggered me with this first one, and she's probably going to trigger me again, but that's what we want. We want people like that. So good on you, Seychelle.
Yes, I'm good on her. I'm very excited to watch her. I mean, we have a couple of spoiler clips that we saw of her, so I'm looking forward to that character development as well.
Okay, so my female standout, again, this is who was the person that within the first 10 minutes of the show was like, I like that person as a character or whatever, no criteria, and it was Letty. I think Letty,
Oh,
I really like Letty a lot. First of all, there's a little bit of background here. She's got a really interesting Wikipedia page. So
ah,
she played college volleyball, and oh, look at this degree in broadcast journalism and communications.
that's why you already
I didn't
said
even,
that.
yeah, I didn't even know that, but I just saw that now. So I mean, I'm obviously a fan of athletes. I'm a fan of female athletes a lot. I've got some really good friends who are girls who played sports. They got a different wiring. They got a really good, they're very big competitive streak. They're really good under pressure, typically very organized and very calm in pressure situations. Now, in addition to that, she was Miss Indiana USA in 2020. And it turns out she is actually someone that I have a good mutual friend with, which is Haley Jordan, who was Miss Indiana USA in 2023. And she also was Miss Indiana in the Miss America pageant in 2017.
Oh,
So she's a
wow.
two-time Miss Indiana title holder in both pageants. And Haley and I were coworkers for maybe a year or two, and she's a good friend of mine. She's been on this show a lot over the years, so would love to have, if Haley has time, it'd be really fun for her to join us for one of these recaps and get her thoughts on this, because she's also a big reality TV fan and someone you could potentially see on a show at some point. Haley told me she was like, she called her Alexis. She didn't call her Letty. That's her first name, Alexis. She said she's an amazing person. She's great. She's really funny. And then the other thing that's interesting about her on her Wikipedia page is that she's done some stuff with WrestleMania and WWE.
Oh, it's interesting.
Let's see. Yeah. So she's participated in WWE. Now, I think she's someone that's probably wanting to do a lot of shows, and maybe you'll see her on other shows, and this is kind of, she's made a little career out of some of this stuff.
Oh,
She
wow.
hosted a podcast.
Go ahead.
So
Okay.
yeah, so she's an interesting person who's kind of like one of these. I think a good person on reality TV is someone who's got like a wealth of different experiences, like our dear friend Kim from season 1. It's like
Right.
Kim has just all kinds of crazy stories. So those are all the things about Letty from off the show. But on the show, what kind of won me over was I thought that one, and again, she's Midwest too. There's the Midwest saying, I like Midwest.
Right.
But she seemed very smart with a lot of comments that she made. She's probably going to do extremely well in these competitions. She's tall. She got long legs, which I
Yes,
think
her
she may
legs.
mention too.
Yes.
She's 6'1".
Stop. Way.
Yeah.
I knew she was tall, but that surprises me. Okay. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Letty.
I think she's going to be a beast in these competitions, and it seemed like she had really good read on things socially, and strategically as well. Like she took that top case, she gave it up, and then David thought he read her, and she totally deceived him. So good poker face too.
That's so true. That is like I can really appreciate your standouts. Like that makes perfect sense, and for some really good reasons. So I appreciate Letty. I didn't have that big deep of a dive on her, but I love the athleticism when I see it in women. That's a characteristic trait that does really well on these shows. So I'm glad to see it.
I think this is my winner pick I think she's going to win. Yeah.
Stop it. No way. Is that your winner pick?
If I had to make one pick right now,
Oh my goodness.
I mean, now granted, it's funny because last season I didn't like people kind of ask me every now and then, like, who did I think was playing the best game? And I talked a lot about Nick. I talked a little bit about Jordan as well.
Yes.
I talked about people who really were kind of staying out of being that big target. And you played a terrific game too, Steph.
Thanks, Jack.
Don't get me wrong on that, but I think that Letty, based on kind of some of those components, and I thought she was very smart in how she, talked a little bit about her strategy. She gave up that case. What we've seen so far, I think she's going to be a person who can float through the game. We'll see. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how everything's going to shake out. And there's also going to be the element to people saw season 1. So if they see someone playing a game similar to the one Jordan did, they're going to be targeted. That you would think they're probably going to.
Yeah, that's a hard. Why floating works so well is because even if you want to like go after the floater, there's competing obstacles, which are other people that you have to shift your attention to. So floating is a great strategy because even if you do want to go after someone who's sort of riding through the middle, there's just all these other things to consider.
Yeah, I think that really on any show, you want to be the person who has options. You want to be the person that it's like, hey, you can go with this group or you can go with that group. You don't want to be the person that's obviously calling the shots. You want to be in a position where you can make decisions, but you're not the person who's driving those decisions.
And I think that Letty really picked up onto, I would like to see how the relationship between Letty and Sydnee works out, because Letty was very quick to point out that while Sydnee was busy feeling like, oh, I'm basically the queen, and Letty was quick to point out that that is not how teamwork works. And when people are not team players, even though Sydnee won and was safe, she did not give credit to her teammates. And Letty, now being such an athlete, it makes perfect sense where she picked up on that immediately and was like, that's not a team player. So good on her.
Well, and you guys had a similar type of, you guys had that whole challenge where you basically had to bluff, and it was like, how much is in this case or whatever. And there was an element of that in this situation. And David is so sure, like, she's got it. She took the $1 million case. And if I had a $1 million case, I would never let go of it, which I think is wrong, because you don't want to be the person who takes the $1 million case because there's a risk of it being taken from you. You want to kind of be good, but not the emergent target right out of the gate who wins everything. So it was funny. He's calling her out. He's wrong. Then he thinks that he reads her bluff and that she's kind of like, well, she played him. And so I'm buying my Letty stock now. She's my winner pick. Do you have a winner pick, Steph?
I can't see it yet. Oddly enough, the person who doesn't stick out at all to me, but I feel like because of physicality should maybe stick out, is Storm. I'm like, where's Storm? And the only thing we heard,
did he get any confessionals? That would probably be why.
One. and the other, because I keep tally, and the other thing that sort of struck alarms on Storm is that he was very vocal to us about I'm going right here through the middle. I'm not doing all of that. So Storm is one to keep an eye on. That's an effective strategy. If you could maintain that, that's great, because there'll be so many other bigger fish to fry. So I look forward to seeing how that goes. But also, I just want to point out that when David was busy knowing supposedly what Letty had in her case, and Letty was sort of feeding him that sort of facial like bluff, they did pan to Parvati, because I'd like to point out that back at the pyramid, David thought he made a chess move, but in reality, the person who made the move after that was Parvati. and had the idea to switch it up.
Yes.
That was Parvati. So
Yeah.
they were at the temple, and there was just so many points where I felt like the two biggest players strategy wise definitely showed some of their strategic moves, some of them great, some of them not so great, but we're beginning to see that, and I love to see it.
And Storm it's going to be interesting. Again, this is if I had to make one pick after the first episode, it's Letty. I think you make a good point. Is like Jordan didn't get a lot of screen time until the middle of the season, really, and she ended up
Right.
winning. So maybe things play out. I'm not going off an edit thing. I'm just going off of what do I know about these people so
Sure.
far. She is the front runner to me. You mentioned Storm. I think we got this like coming up this season, which truthfully, I wish they didn't do giveaway as much as they do. Because, like, last season, there was a lot of stuff that ended up getting spoiled. We even knew that
Yes.
Rob was going to lose because in that coming up on the season, you saw Amy crossing the finish line and you guys kind of like
Yes.
celebrating. So you knew that Rob, people figured that one out. I think they even showed in the coming up, like the final challenge between Jordan and Amy on the ropes. It gives away too much. So I understand why they do it. It's fun to have some of it, but one of the juicy things you saw Storm and Maria Grace making out with each other. So that is going to be great TV, no
Oh my.
doubt. But that's another way that you can end up becoming a target.
And incidentally, I would also like to point out that we did not hear from Maria Grace at all. So that being said,
Wrong. She did. She had
did
a
she?
confessional. Yeah, she
Oh, she
did.
was. Oh,
We
she must
talked.
have one then. Did she?
Yeah, it was like after everything kind of happened in that time between, like leading up to next episode. She said something about being a vegetarian, and then she also made some other comment. I can't remember what she said, but she did.
In the
She was
same confessional?
no. I don't know if the vegetarian thing was in the confessional, but in a confessional, she did have something that she said. I think it
Oh.
may have even been about Storm being a good-looking guy or something like
Oh,
that.
was it? Okay,
Yeah.
I have to check. I have to keep an eye on my tally because I was
Now,
like, who is
granted,
this? Me and
to
Maria.
your point, she did not get much screen time. In
Yeah,
fact, she wasn't even on camera very much. So
she wasn't. Very briefly.
maybe
I
she's the
think
Jordan of this season. Maybe she wins then.
don't sleep on those people you don't see. Don't sleep on those people you don't see. Rock is another one. Very minimal
Yeah,
screen time.
he
CK,
seems like he's Rock
twice.
seems like he's going to be funny. I think we're going to end up
I think I'm
enjoying
going to
him.
enjoy him. I'm really looking
Yeah,
forward to his protagonist development. CK, we didn't see too much of, but on the
no.
little flashes that I did see of her, I enjoyed that. I'm going to enjoy her, I think, as well.
What about Lachelle?
Lachelle said, I ain't your auntie. That's what Lachelle
Yeah.
said.
Yep.
And I wrote that down because I think she is going to play a very comfortable auntie type character. And maybe some people will be able to drop their guard. And we'll see if her work, it sounds like she's also a professor. I haven't had chance. She
Yeah.
said she works at Columbia
Yep.
in social work. So I don't know if in her lived existence, she's been able to navigate through on those auntie vibes. She got to come through the more than auntie vibes, but with an auntie vibe, that means her plans to play the middle as well. So we'll see how that goes.
Steph, if I was playing on this season, I think she's someone that I would probably team up with right at the
Yeah.
beginning. Because,
Yeah.
first of all, it's kind of funny. I get along well with people that are my senior generally. People
Yeah.
like to kind of be my adoptive son or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think we get along really well. And I also kind of have thought about this before. Like, people wouldn't really suspect us to be working together. I think that's kind of like
Yes.
a natural, but it'd be a natural connection. I think we get along really well. And the other thing is, like, I'm a 30-year-old male that grew up playing sports. I'm in good shape. I think I do okay with these challenges,
Mm-hmm.
but I also want people around me at the end that I feel confident that I can beat in the challenges. So if you saw how season one played out, I think Lachelle is a great person to have in an alliance, and Rock could also be as well. We'll see how Rock does in these challenges and competitions. Lachelle could also surprise people. We'll see. But if I was in her position, that would be part of my pitch of being like, you're going to beat me. I can't run a marathon. I can't, lift something really big over my head. So, like, keep me around. I'm not going to ever win a challenge that's going to keep you from winning it. And you're going to need people that you can beat at the end.
That's a good way to look at it. And I think she's going to do well in that regard.
Yeah.
She is, remember, in the Yellow Dome tent. And that tent has the most amount of people. So there's some sort of extra insulation that she kind of just has built in. So I think that works out for her. And in the very early sprinklings of these emerging adversaries, she's not in the mix. I'm listening for people who are not in the mix, and that's always a good thing. You do not need adversaries on Banker's Island.
Yeah, I like her. I think she's going to do well. Last couple people that we didn't mention. Who would you have next? You were going through all these confessional cabinets. Philip. I think Philip's probably the only person we haven't talked about.
Oh my goodness. And I actually, it's so great because I actually think he's a wonderful player. I think he's doing a phenomenal job. I think he has the physique so that the physicality challenges aren't going to be an issue. It looks like he's maybe starting to make some good social connections. Philip also ended up in the Blue Dome with Letty, with Luke, with Seychelle. Actually, that's the biggest dome. That's the biggest dome is the Blue Dome. So I think.
Oh yeah, how are you feeling looking at these new camp that they have compared to what you guys were dealing with?
I'm jealous. That's a trait. I don't want to be this way, but I am jealous. Those are gorgeous. The floor looks wonderful. It's an actual door. I mean, it's beautiful. I mean, they seem incredibly comfortable. The banker really went all out this season. So I'm glad. I hope they have 2-ply toilet paper and they're just living their best island life there.
One last thing on the banker. Obviously, we get this, it's a different banker this season, how he shows up. Howie's really embracing this antagonistic role.
Yeah, he did.
Which is honestly hilarious. I think it's really funny. And I hope he shows up again. And maybe he's just this one episode. But, it's like, okay, who's the new banker? And it's a she.
Yes.
And I might take a take here that might be different from what you have to say or what I don't know. I don't care about who the banker is. I'm going to be honest. I think this is a big thing they tried to lean into with season 1 is like this. And they even, at the end of the promo for coming up, it was like the last thing they showed is who's the banker. I really, if I was playing the show, I'm watching the show, I don't really care. I really don't care. I can't, someone's giving out a lot of money. Great. Cool. And the banker never had a personality. It was never a person. It was always a silhouette. Mm-hmm. They tried to make a big thing out of this in season 1 is like, who is the banker? As if it was this person all along. And I thought that was fun. I thought it was great. I knew it was obviously going to be Howie. I thought that was really fun. I loved the reveal of it. And it was kind of silly to me, but I really enjoyed it. I just thought it was kind of funny that we're kind of going with this theme now for season 2 of like, oh, it's another mystery and stay tuned to figure out who it is. I just don't think it's going to be that big of a sales pitch to the audience. I don't think it's that much of a like stick around to find out who the banker is kind of thing.
I mean, I think it's a nice little treat at the end of the season for all the people who have been here. Like you want to know, okay, even if you're just showing up for the last minute, if you take anything away from the season, are you going to know about the nuances of each excursion? No, but you're going to know who won and you're going to know who the banker is. So those are the 2 things if you want to end up with the final synopsis. So I am looking forward to it. Does it change the game consequentially? Probably not, but I think it's cool.
I thought it was really funny how Parvati said, it needed to be a she. It's time. And I just thought it was funny because it's like, this is season 2. Like,
oh my goodness, yes.
If it was season 10 and we've had only male bankers, then that would be like a comment that I think would like make a lot of sense to say, but I just thought it was funny where it's like, oh my gosh, like it's time. There's only been 1 season, so
yeah, it's funny. She offers up, it's Beyonce at the end. I'm like, no, dear, it is not. But
who is it? Who's your pick?
Good first guess for who the banker is.
Yeah,
I think it's an artist or a musician, and that's all I have for right now. I don't think it's an actress. I think
who would you like it to be? Who would be a great person?
Oh my goodness.
Oprah?
I have to think about that. No, I don't want to see Oprah up in there. No, no, sir. I think Oprah got other stuff going on than messing around on the cloud. And you think this is devious. This person is very devious. They're very, problematic. They like to see people squirm. I saw some previews of some rats coming up. That is a little bit on the villainous side. So I have to think about who that might be. What about you?
Well, I mean, I was thinking like someone who's, you know, a self-made woman who is an entrepreneur, has made a lot of money. So like Oprah or, Martha Stewart would be pretty funny.
I'd love to see Martha. I'm not even gonna. That would just be phenomenal. I don't know if she's villainous enough, but she's certainly funny enough. So
She had her own apprentice. People might not remember. There was a Martha Stewart version of The Apprentice.
Oh, I don't remember that actually.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yep, and those are all the people really that I had notes on. But
Okay, well, the last thing to lead into next week is we've got this, oh boy, someone else is showing up to play. And I'm going to say, just from watching that trailer, I'm really excited to see Dr. Will step in there because based on the trailer, it looks like he's coming in there guns blazing, ready to stir the pot, ready to play hard. He's calling people out. It was interesting because they made it look like he and sort of the Parvati group are going to be clashing with each other. It's not going to be a full sweep of like, oh, we're the vets. Let's go after the rookies. Let's team up. No, like he's coming in here, and I'm excited to see how that shakes out. Dr. Will, of course, won season 2 of Big Brother, played again on Big Brother All Stars, finished in 4th place. Has really is kind of like the Richard Hatch figure of Big Brother. It seems like he always shows up when they do those roundtables at the end of the season. He hosts that a lot. And, one other thing about Dr. Will that's worth mentioning was he made some comments in an interview last year. It was a year ago. He showed up on the Traders. He hosted a competition or appeared on a competition, didn't actually star in the competition. And then he made some comments about how the Big Brother players that they had picked for the show hadn't done very well. And this prompted a civil war on Twitter. Janelle and Rachel Riley went kind of back and forth with him, or at the very least, they called him out. And I can't remember who said what, but I know that Janelle and Rachel, I think Rachel said, you won't actually go and get your feet wet and play one of these shows. You just want to show up and kind of, it's easy for you to armchair and say all this stuff and talk smack. Let's see you go out and do it. Well, Rachel and Janelle, he's here and he's ready to play.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we'll see how he does. And I'm excited also to see how he plays. Good for Rachel and good for Janelle for, sticking up for the franchise, because Big Brother, nobody works harder than a Big Brother player except for OG Survivor player. And I'll stand 10 toes down on that. So we're going to give the Big Brother players their roses as they belong. But it was very interesting to me because we all saw the players, we saw the cast, and Dr. Will was in the jungle with his tuxedo on. And so as the episode was going, I was like, where's Dr. Will? Where's Dr. Will? Only to see that he's coming in with a delayed entrance. And so I'm curious to see what sort of position and role he's going to be playing, and with having this late entrance. And it looks like he's not going to make a lot of friends. I think Parvati said that he's a particular flavor and not one that she's going to really enjoy. So I'd like to see that. They're definitely two opposite ends of the spectrum game-wise, I think.
They made it look like he's really going to target that Parvati, David, and Dixon group, including him clashing with Dixon. So this is going to be really interesting because that could be the opportunity for the Parvati group to kind of unify and bring more people into the fold. Yeah. Or will it go the other way where the other people will go with Will and then they are on the outs? So that's going to be probably something. I hope that this is a battle that lasts several episodes long. I hope that we kind of have a rivalry where they're maybe trying to take shots at each other, but they're unable to because someone wins immunity and the other person's safe. And I think that that's going to be a lot of fun. And yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of what happens next. Dr. Will, I've not seen him play before. I've not seen Big Brother season 2. So this is a little bit, in some ways, an introduction to me
Oh
of
wow.
his
Okay.
game. Yeah.
Okay, that should be fun. That should really be fun. It's nice watching these people come in from different genres, and that was one of my curiosities when I left Deal or No Deal Island season 1. I just automatically was thinking, well, how does this show continue to develop? What sort of characters will they bring in? And I knew just from the nature of the game, this would be a huge draw from those who've played other competitive reality programs. So I was very excited to see. So we've got multiple dynamics in the game now. It's not just the lone Boston Rob character. We've got so many characters that we know are skilled, and then our emerging new cast who have yet to prove themselves in their game mentality as well. So I think it's going to be awesome. I will be sat down every week here with you guys. Yes.
Yes. Yes. This is going to be a lot of fun. Is there anything else, Steph, that we didn't touch on? Anything else? We do everything.
Yes, we did everything.
We did the whole thing.
Yeah, I just have so many funny quotes. This was a great episode. Wonderful start to a season. Joe, the trusted game master, Kamari, Ben. I mean, this is just it's
Oh, I gotta say, Joe, I like how Joe is kind of leaning into like he's Joe's pretty nice to you guys, it seems like. But he
Mhm.
did a little bit of like the TJ Lavin where he's gonna be a hardo and he's gonna like rip into them. Like, you only got $1 in the pot. Like, you guys really need to step it up. And it's just kind of a funny thing because there's only one person playing the game, and so it's not like a group effort. Although I guess he's probably saying you guys could have helped him because you were giving him advice, and but it's kind of funny because it almost feels a little bit like Joe's kind of like the nice boss that you have, or like the good cop, and it's kind
Yes,
of like, all right, I'm vouching for you, but the banker's really giving me this hard time, so like I kind of
yes,
need to be tough on you here.
yes. Joe gives good vibes. They could have picked a better host. Joe is
He's a great
awesome.
host.
And
Yeah.
his character just really shines through that. Even when he's delivering the worst possible news on the phone from the banker, he's just very vicarious, and he's wonderful.
All right. Well, we'll be back next week. You guys can, in the meantime, we'd love to get your comments. If you guys have any questions for me or for Steph about Deal or No Deal Island, comment them here on YouTube, and we'll get to as many of those as possible. We'll try to do that, make that a segment each week where we answer your listener questions. And you can even, like, if you guys want, you can ask us questions about the next episode, and we'll try to get to all those. So. Um, Go ahead and comment. We'd love to get that. Subscribe to the show. Again, we're on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. It's Jack Vita Show Entertainment is the name of the feed. We've got 2 separate feeds, 2 separate YouTube channels. I also have a sports show and a sports channel. So if you guys want the sports content, go and subscribe and follow that. We're both on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok. It's
Okay.
at Jack Vita Show. And then Steph, you're on social media as well, right?
I'm on social media here and there. I'm on Instagram primarily. It's at Dr._midwife, and that's my handle across all platforms where you could find me, Twitter and TikTok. And I use them intermittently. My DMs are in shambles, but feel free to leave comments on any of the videos, and I can get to you if you have any questions or comments, worries, concerns. Thanks for having me, all, and Jack Vita's audience. And it's nice to be introduced to the Jack Vita Show audience because you have such a great group of people who've been following this podcast. You do a great job, Jack.
Thank
I've
you.
always been impressed. So.
Yeah, Steph's a big time listener. She listens to a lot of episodes, so
Yeah, all the episodes.
yeah, but she's not exaggerating. She listens to all of them. So, we're gonna have a lot of fun. Thank you, Steph, for joining us. Again, we'll be back next week, and until then, I'm Jack Vita, bringing the dancing lobsters.